that aim to increase community transparency and flexibility for reform. Secondly, he integrated new systems that leveraged research on police behavior, enabling department leaders to identify early warning signs of misconduct and implement strategic interventions to prevent more action. Chief Medaria Arradondo is a visionary leader. He's a consultant and a community advocate, known for his uprightness and dedication to public service. He continues to inspire and drive positive change in the field of law enforcement, and we want to have the pleasure of welcoming him. So please, ladies and gentlemen, please let's put our hands together as we welcome Chief Arradondo.
Your Excellency, thank you for your graciousness in allowing me to be here present today. I appreciate that very much. Inspector General Coleman, thank you so very much for the friendship, your leadership, at a time when the Liberian people are looking at you to help forge a pathway forward, and I know that they are in good hands with such an astounding leader in you, Inspector General Coleman, so thank you. To our distinguished guests today, thank you so much for having me. The dedicated men and women of the Liberian National Police Service, thank you so much for having me. I had an opportunity to meet with many of you today. Excellency, I would like to have a conversation this evening to talk about not only the incident back in May 25 of 2020 that totally shook not only the Minneapolis Police Department, but policing across the country and the world, but I also, Your Excellency, want to highlight that no matter how significant chaos and crises occur, you can overcome them. You can overcome them. I'm going to highlight some of the background information that occurred during that summer. I'm going to be very frank and honest. There was some very troubling times, but we were hopeful. I remained hopeful. Our communities remained hopeful, and we were able to get through it. And so, to the Liberian National Police leaders, I hope that you will take this information to know that even in the most dire circumstances, you can achieve, you can overcome, you can get through this. And I also will say that we all have an obligation to our children. We have to always give them hope that tomorrow can be a better and brighter future. And I know this can be accomplished here in Liberia. So with that, with your permission, Your Excellency, I'd like to proceed. Thank you. This first clip I want to show you, I want to give you some background. In the city of Minneapolis, we have 5 police precincts. This was one of the precincts. The gate that you see, and you see there's tarps and there's some barricades there. The officers on the inside are basically trapped inside. You will hear in a moment, you'll hear the sound of gunshot fire. That's gunshot fire being fired into this precinct, and you'll see Molotov cocktails. The reason this will be significant as I continue my conversation with you, that event you just witnessed, that was 5 years before May 25th, 2020. It was 5 years before. This will give you context as we lead up to it. By the way, that was a police officer involved shooting that sparked that. For the next 18 days and nights, that police precinct you saw, there was an occupation outside every night. That had not occurred in modern history of American police. But I want to set the stage. That was not the events of May 25th, 2020. But as we move forward into this conversation, you'll see why that's significant. I also want to preface and say this. I was not the chief at the time when that event happened on November 15th of 2015. Earlier in the year, there was an activist in the community, and she was very, very, you would see her on television, and she was very concerned about police and community relations, and she was very fiery in her news conferences. And I said, I have to reach out to meet this person. I met her. I met her that year in January. Fast forward, that event was November 15th of 2015. The first person I called to come to that scene was that activist. And I'll also talk about the importance of allyship and how it's so critically important to make those allyships. So, the things that you can learn, certainly that I learned, that are the elements of a crisis. One is there's going to be an immediate threat to your organization. The other is there's going to be an element of surprise. And for all leaders in this room, I'm going to tell you this right now, there will be a short decision time. Many of you will think that if I can delay making a decision, it'll save me. No, it won't. You will have to make a decision, and you will have to make it timely and quickly. And you will learn, I had to make some decisions. And I will tell you, as a leader, you've got to be honest, decisive, and you've got to act quickly. You will not have the time you think when the crisis is occurring. The organization that I came from, it's a 157-year culture, 157-year organization. Prior to May 25th, 2020, if you think of an iceberg, what's the biggest part of an iceberg? The top or the bottom? It's the bottom. What we see is the top. What our community saw prior to May 25th, they saw our behaviors and our practice. Underneath, they couldn't really understand our perceptions, our attitudes, our beliefs, our values, and our ethics. On May 26th, the day after, that's what everyone was focused on. What are our organization's perceptions? What are our attitudes? What are our beliefs? What are our values? And what are our ethics? And I will also come back to you this as a leader, and I know that Inspector Coleman stresses this all the time. Your values, your values, your values. I want to tell you, many of the general public does not know this. On May 25th, 2020, at about 8 p.m., I received a call from my deputy chief. My deputy chief gave me the call. He said, Rondo, we had our officers out at this intersection in South Minneapolis. They were going there. There was a man who might have committed a counterfeit crime. At some point in time, it was a medical emergency, and we believe he's going to be deceased. When that occurs, we call it in-custody death. There's a protocol that I must go through. In uniform, I go down to City Hall, I contact the mayor. It's a certain protocol we go through. The officers that were involved in that you see there on that screen, they come down to City Hall. There's pictures of them taken. There's a standard protocol that happens. This picture here, as grainy as it looks, I want you to take a look at that because at about 11 p.m., I asked the deputy chief, I said, we have a poll camera across the street from that intersection. I said, I want to see that. What does that poll camera say? When I watched the poll camera, that's all the view I had. Grainy picture, there was no audio. And all I saw was the back of the officers. There was nothing in the video that I saw there that rose to a level of alarm right away. There was nothing. There was no sort of commotion by the bystanders or anything. That was the grainy video that I saw. talk about leadership is relationship centered, do you remember the person I said who I called back 5 years ago, that video you saw 5 years ago? This is the woman I reached out to 5 years prior to. Her name is Miss Nikema. She's an activist in our community. We built up a relationship from that night. When the officers had left, this is May 25th, 2020. When the officers had left, I saw that grainy video that you all just saw. I'm sitting up in my office in City Hall alone. It was about midnight. You know who gave me a call? Miss Nikema gave me a call and she said, Chief, have you seen the video of your officers choking and killing that man? Now, I knew she was talking about what was occurring at the intersection, but the video I saw was the grainy one you saw. She sent me on my cell phone the video that now all of you have seen, and the world has seen. It was the bystander video by Mr. Arradondo. Why is this significant? Me and Miss Nikema, when I first, this is a true story. When I first tried to reach her, I was not getting any progress in trying to reach her. I'm in my office and one day I get a call from my aunt, Martha. It's a true story, follow me on this. I said, you know, Auntie, I gotta get going. I'm trying to locate this woman. And she said, what's her name? I said, her name is Miss Nikema. She said, Miss Nikema, I know her. You tell her your Aunt Martha says hi. Okay. So I hang up. I eventually called Miss Nikema. And I said, Miss Nikema, my name is Deputy Chief Arradondo. I said, I'm really trying to meet you. I know that you're very strong and passionate about police-community relations. I said, can I buy you a cup of coffee? And you know what her response was? It's as quiet as all of you in this room right now. It's crickets. And you know what I did? By the way, my Aunt Martha says hi. Oh, come on down. It's a true story. My Aunt Martha. When I met with her for that cup of coffee, there were many things that we did not agree on. But at one point during the conversation, Miss Nikema said, Rondo, do you know why I do what I do, why I say what I say, when I'm out with protesting? I said, no. She says, because I have two little young black boys, and I don't want them to be shot. It was right at that moment that we found our shared common ground. Because I said, I don't want that to happen. So that situation happened 5 years prior. She was the first person I called. Fast forward to May 2020 at midnight. She didn't have to call me, but she did. The reason why that's also significant, can you imagine had I woke up that next morning like everyone in this country for that video for the first time? Imagine. Seek your allies, as unconventional as they may be. Seek them out and build those relationships. I'm telling you, they will pay you dividends to have those relationships in the world. Here's what occurred. Near midnight, I get the call from Miss Nikema, asking me if I saw that disturbing video. Now that's the video that everyone in the world knows. Mr. Nelson Frazier recorded that. After reviewing the bystander video, I notified our Minnesota FBI Special Agent in Charge. The gentleman at the time had only been in our area for about 30 days. I called him at 1:30 in the morning, woke him up. He was groggy, and I said, listen, I need you to look into this case. And he said, Rondo, if you're calling me at 1:30 in the morning, it ain't good. And I said, it's not. And to his credit, he said, I'll have some agents dispatched there in about 30 minutes. And I'm thankful that he did that. Now, after I made the call to the FBI Special Agent in Charge, the next call I made was to 32 members of our African American community. We included faith leaders, activists, elders, and also our Minneapolis NAACP and Urban League. Ms. Nikema was one of the first ones I called, and I said to all of them, a tragic incident has occurred in our city. And if there's one favor you can do for me, I need you all to show up tomorrow morning in my conference room at 8 a.m. Of the 32 I called, 36 showed up. And let me ask you this, the 32 I called, that was not the first time I ever had to pick the phone and call. Having those relationships and keeping those relationships is so critically important. Here is something that was a mistake. Our first communications of what occurred, we listed it as a medical incident. That was not a good thing. It was not a good thing. We should have gotten more information because that created some doubt in people. Immediately that following morning, the MP announced that the FBI was going to be a part of the investigation. The news media, and I will tell you, from that morning, the video had gone viral by that morning. Social media, the video is picking up all around. We also know that there's going to be a large crowd gathered at 38th Chicago, and a memorial starts to grow. And I tell you that when I saw the video for the first time, I knew it was going to be ever changing for our city, but I will tell you, I didn't know how massive the response, the reaction was going to be. But I knew it was going to be significant. The officers were terminated earlier that morning. I wish I had this. Okay? When you're dealing with a crisis, right, it would be nice to be able to, in case of emergency, break glass. Oh, here's what you do, Rondo, in the case of this. I had chiefs of police from across the country calling me, going, we're starting to feel the impacts of this. We've never experienced anything like this in modern policing history. There was absolutely no playbook. So when that situation occurs, you gotta step out of your comfort zone. You gotta be creative. Teamwork is going to be critically important. You got to think of creative solutions. And I will also, you'll see this here, we had significant multiple threats. People will focus, you're going to see some video here shortly. The video that you're going to see is really contained to about a 6-block area. I have to remind everyone here, all of you went through, we were also going through a pandemic. We were also going through significant violent crime. There's stuff, 911 calls didn't stop. They didn't. And so what did that leave me as a leader? My whole priorities changed and shifted. That was my #1 priority. No more funerals. I didn't want any civilians or first responders killed, period. And I will tell you this, we were the epicenter of anger and outrage as a police department. We're the epicenter of that. Everything shifted for me, that was it. No more funerals. Here are some of the challenges you'll face in crisis. The need to communicate effectively. I've often said, for me as a leader, 2 things. 1, time. People on the inside say you're moving way too fast for us. People on the outside moving way too slow. But communication, people receive their information in so many different platforms today, particularly social media, and young people. Back in the United States, young people do not wait for the 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock news. They don't. That's not where they get their information. You've got to also adapt to evolving situations, and as Inspector Gregory Coleman does, Inspector General does, you have to lead from the top. I've admired and appreciate that about him so much. You got to think creatively. There's no blueprint for this here, and you have to need to manage relationships. There's going to be relationships that you're going to have to manage: activists, faith leaders, politicians. So I told you about, you saw the video of the 1 precinct before, that's 5 years earlier. The officers that were involved in this looked at a 3rd precinct. So we have 5 precincts. precincts. This was at the 3rd precinct. This is some investigative information to give you a setting of how significant this evolved and evolved fast.
Chief Medaria, excuse me a moment, please. Intermission, please. We just told the President time. He has another very important meeting to be at right now. So we'll take a break and he will make his